I remember the first time they handed me the keys like it was an act of grace. It was a gray February morning, the kind where the sun stays tucked behind the clouds like it too, doesn't want to get involved. The apartment was still echoing, with emptiness then, boxes stacked like promises in corners. I had paid half the deposit, half the first month's rent. I had helped clean every sticky cabinet and scraped off the previous tenants' peeling decals from the windows. And still, I remember how Mom said it, not, "Welcome home," but, "Just don't touch anything in the living room, okay?" That's all your sister's style. Sister, always her name first, even in the house I helped build. Raya had found the apartment listing. I had driven us across town in my rusted sedan, negotiated the lease, even stood up to the landlord about the plumbing. But when it came time to sign the papers, Mom and Raya handled it together. Just a formality, they told me, since my credit was iffy. I didn't argue. I just nodded. That's what I always did. Every month I transferred my share to Raya's account, on time, in full. Sometimes more, when her shifts at the salon were slow. Sometimes all of it, when Mom said we were a family, not a spreadsheet. I'd take the smaller room. I didn't complain when my shelf space in the fridge kept shrinking. I just bought a mini fridge and put it in the hallway, next to my laundry basket and the fold-up table I used as a desk. Nobody noticed. Or they noticed, but didn't care. There's something sharp about walking into a room and realizing you're not in it, not on the bills, not on the lease, not even in the picture frame on the mantel. It hit me the day the new lease renewal came. Raya was waving the envelope around like it was an award. Mom stood beside her, barefoot and smug, holding a glass of white wine before noon. "We renewed without you," Raya said, not even looking at me. "It's just easier this way. Less paperwork." "Wait. What?" I blinked. "You're not on the lease anymore," she said. "Well, technically you never were." I opened my mouth, then closed it again. It felt like my throat was stuffed with cotton. I could feel the blood rushing to my ears. "But I pay." "Raya covers it," Mom interrupted. "You just help her out sometimes. Let's not make this a thing." I just stood there, not shouting, not pleading, just realizing that all this time I had been paying rent on a place that didn't have my name on it, cleaning rooms that didn't belong to me, making space for people who wouldn't have noticed if I disappeared. And in that moment, something shifted. Not loudly. Not with rage. Just quietly. Like a door clicking shut in a room no one was in. The next morning, my mug was missing. The chipped blue one with the faded moon phases. The only thing I'd brought with me from the dorms. I'd used it every morning for 3 years, even after the handle cracked, and I glued it back together with shaky hands and Gorilla Glue. When I opened the cabinet, it wasn't there. In its place, 4 matching beige mugs with gold handles, I asked, not accusatory, just soft. "Where's my mug?" Raya shrugged, scrolling through her phone on the couch. "Oh, I think Mom tossed it. Said it was junking up the kitchen." No. Apology. No hesitation. Just like that. Gone. It became a theme that week. My shampoo replaced with hers. My little folding table moved to the hallway to make space. Even the throw blanket I kept on the couch, the one I bought with my first paycheck, was folded and stored away because it didn't match the vibe. Everything I touched became theirs. Or rather, Everything I once touched was now a violation. Don't use the oven so much. Electricity's high this month. Your stuff in the fridge smells weird. Can you stop leaving your shoes at the door? It looks messy. It didn't matter that I paid the same, sometimes more. It didn't matter that I still bought toilet paper, refilled the paper towels, restocked the water jug before anyone noticed it was empty. I wasn't on the lease. I wasn't on paper. I was an afterthought, a background figure in a home I helped pay for. One night, I overheard them laughing in the kitchen. I had come home late from work. My manager asked me to cover a shift. I was tired, soaked from the rain, my earbuds dead, my spine aching from standing too long. I stood just inside the door, wiping my shoes on the mat when I heard my name. She's so passive, Raya said, giggling. She just does whatever we say. Mom poured more wine. She always has. She's like wallpaper. They laughed harder, laughed like I was a myth, laughed like I was invisible. I didn't walk in. I didn't defend myself. I just stood there, in wet socks, holding a bag of groceries they'd eventually eat. And that's when I started to understand. I wasn't part of this family in the way I thought. I was tolerated, useful, like an appliance, until I wasn't. That night, I opened my laptop and read the lease agreement they'd left out on the kitchen table. Page by page, line by line. I learned more in 30 minutes than I had in 3 years. They'd signed the renewal last week. 2 names, not mine, which meant legally. I owed them nothing. No rent, no groceries, no help. They had removed my name, and with it, my responsibility. And in a strange way, I felt something unexpected. Not rage. Not grief, not even betrayal. Relief. I stopped buying milk first. It wasn't even a decision. I just walked past it in the refrigerated aisle and didn't reach for it. That used to be the first thing in the cart. Because Raya liked almond, Mom wanted whole, and I always got whichever was on sale. But that night, I passed the row of cartons like they were strangers. No one noticed. Then I stopped refilling the Brita. I drank tap. I stopped replacing the sponge by the sink when it grew sour. I stopped picking up Raya's oat milk when it ran out. I stopped folding the laundry left in the dryer. I stopped writing little notes like, use the last trash bag, restocked under sink. I simply stopped, and for a while, no one said anything, because I was always supposed to be invisible. So they didn't notice my absence, only my usefulness when it disappeared. A week passed before the complaint started. Why is there no milk? Did you forget to take the trash out? Ugh, why is this sponge so gross? I'd shrug, or sometimes just say, I don't use that anymore. They blinked like I'd spoken another language. But, you always handle that stuff. I smiled, quiet. Not anymore. It was a strange kind of power, not loud, not dramatic, just deliberate absence. The apartment began to reflect what I already knew, that I didn't live here, not really, that my labor had been mistaken for love, that my presence was only appreciated when it cleaned, paid, or fixed something. And now they had to live in the mess they left behind. A fridge that no longer stocked itself. A bin that didn't empty, magically. A bathroom without paper rolls waiting under the sink. One night, Mom cornered me in the hallway. She was holding a dirty dish towel and looking agitated. Raya's boyfriend is moving in, she said. Just like that. No question. No discussion. I waited, letting the silence stretch long enough to sting. "He'll probably take the hallway. Closet for his shoes," she added. "So maybe you can move your stuff out?" I didn't answer. I just looked at her. Really looked. For the first time in years, I noticed how young she still tried to look. Always half-dressed like someone in a lifestyle commercial. But her eyes had tired corners. Her mouth stayed tight. And she never asked anything, only told. I moved past her quietly. That night, I packed 2 boxes, my documents and my clothes. And then I opened a new browser tab and typed, "Studio apartments with month-to-month leases. No credit check." The hallway closet was already empty when I opened it. Everything of mine, jackets, shoes, the canvas bin with my umbrella and old scarves, had been shoved into a cardboard box and pushed against the wall of my room like a silent eviction notice. No note. No explanation. Just done. Raya's boyfriend had already stacked his sneakers on the bottom shelf, his cologne perched on top like it had always belonged there. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask why they couldn't have waited. I just stood there, looking at the closet that no longer smelled like the lavender sachet I had kept tucked in the corner. I carried my box inside and shut the door behind me. I didn't cry. That surprised me. That I didn't even feel the sting anymore. Maybe it's because I had already started grieving weeks ago. Maybe it's because grief requires hope. And I had none left for this place. I started eating dinner. At work. Leftovers from the cafe. Quiet bites alone at the break room table, plastic fork against ceramic, the hum of the vending machine my only company. It was peaceful there, anonymous and kind. I kept telling myself I was saving money, that it was practical, but really, it was something else. A soft kind of exile. A choice to shrink away before they had the chance to push harder. I began staying later, wiping down counters no one asked me to, helping prep even when I wasn't on shift, just to delay. Going home. Raya barely spoke to me anymore. She and her boyfriend played music loud in the evenings, laughter bouncing off the walls like a language I was never meant to understand. Their world spilled into the kitchen, mismatched bowls, half-drunk sodas, dirty plates left in the sink for days. Mom kept blaming me for the mess. "You used to help more." I looked at her, really looked. "You used to care." She didn't respond, just turned away like the conversation had never happened. I had found a place, tiny, barely affordable, tucked above a bookstore that smelled like paper and pipe tobacco. The landlord didn't ask too many questions, just first month's rent, a reference, and a quiet handshake. I hadn't told them yet. There was something delicate about holding the secret in my chest, like the last match in a storm. Something sacred. But I began sorting my drawers anyway, pulling things I'd forgotten I owned. Letters, photos, old receipts with my name and Raya's scrawled side by side. All the things that proved, once, we were something like equals. Late one night, as I wrapped a plate in a dish towel to box it away, I heard her through the wall. "She's moving out, I think," Raya whispered. "Good," her boyfriend said. "She's been weird lately." They both laughed. I didn't. I sat on the floor, cardboard open in front of me, my hands resting on the rim of the box, my fingers still holding the towel, still holding the plate. But everything else inside me had already let go. I moved out on a Tuesday, not because it was symbolic, not because anyone asked, just because my shift ended early and the silence of that empty afternoon felt right. I didn't tell them. There was no note, no box labeled kitchen stuff left behind to share. I only took what was mine, and only the things they wouldn't miss until they looked for them. My cast iron pan, the vacuum, the power strip with all the working outlets, the only charger that actually held a connection without flickering. I left the mugs. I left the wine glasses I'd bought on clearance. I left the little stool they always used but never noticed had my name on the receipt. Some things were too cheap to be worth the conversation. Other things were too precious to be worth the reminder. I walked everything out slowly, box by box, down the narrow stairwell. It was warm for March. The sun had a tired kind of glow, low and honey-colored, like it was watching but too weary to interfere. I paused halfway through to wipe my forehead with my sleeve. In the distance, a dog barked. A car passed. Inside, no one noticed. They were both home. I could hear them laughing at something on TV. The same kind of laugh they used the night I overheard them call me wallpaper. I made 4 trips. On the 5th, I locked the door behind me. Not out of formality, but finality. I didn't slam it. Didn't hesitate. Just clicked it closed with the same quiet they had used when erasing me. In my car, the boxes sat like silent passengers. My duffel bag was slumped in the back seat, my pillow perched on top. I turned the key in the ignition and let the engine hum. I didn't look back, not at the window, not at the door, not at the apartment I had kept livable for them. That night, in my new place, I sat cross-legged on the floor eating a gas station sandwich. There was no couch yet, no real table, just 2 moving boxes and a draft that whispered through the old windows. And yet, for the first time in years, the silence didn't ache. It settled. I could still hear echoes of what Mom might say when she realized I was gone. Dramatic. Ungrateful. She should have said something. But I didn't owe them that. They removed me from the lease. They cleared my closet without a word. They replaced my mug, erased my name, and redefined my presence into a footnote. So I left the same way they treated me. Quietly. Effortlessly. Completely. A week passed before I heard from them. It came as a text. Short, clipped, with no greeting. Hey, do you know what happened to the internet? I stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I remembered. The Wi-Fi account was in my name. It always had been. Back when we moved in, Raya didn't have a credit card, and Mom didn't want another bill. I signed up for it because someone had to, and I'd quietly paid it for almost 2 years. It had just become part of my rhythm. Rent, groceries, Wi-Fi. But last Tuesday, when I left, I canceled it. Not out of spite, out of necessity, out of truth, because they had taken me off the lease, and I took myself out of the house. I didn't reply. I didn't explain. A few hours later, another message came from Mom. Can you please reactivate it? Raya has work tomorrow, and then, 5 minutes after that, we can transfer you the money. Just let us know. I smiled, not cruelly, just with the kind of softness that comes from being unsurprised. They didn't ask where I went. They didn't ask if I was okay. They just wanted their internet. The next morning, I got a phone call. I didn't answer. I watched it ring out, the screen lighting my dim apartment like a reminder. I imagined them sitting around in confusion. The silence, the buffering wheel, the sudden inconvenience of a world without my invisible labor. That afternoon, I changed the billing address on the account to my new place. And when the email confirmation came in, I stared at the screen for a long while. There it was, a service, finally registered to a place that belonged to me. It felt grounding, like getting a letter addressed with your full name after years of being called nicknames that never fit. The messages stopped after that. Nowhere. Did you go? No. Are you okay? Only absence. A vacuum they didn't know how to fill, because I had always done the filling. And now they'd have to figure out the trash bags, the milk, the sponge, the Wi-Fi. Now they'd have to pay. Not just with money, but with effort, with noticing, with waking up in a home that didn't run on someone else's quiet contributions. That night, I lit a small candle on the windowsill of my new studio. The wax was lavender. I let the scent fill the room as I sat by the window and watched the streetlights flicker on. Outside, life passed. Inside, I breathed in the peace of being unneeded. Not rejected, not erased, just released. I didn't expect anything on my birthday, which was a strange feeling. Not sadness, not hope, just emptiness dressed in routine. I went to work like any other Tuesday. Folded napkins, refilled sugar jars, cleaned espresso dust from the base of the machine with an old toothbrush someone had labeled magic wand. No one at work knew. I didn't tell them. Not because I was hiding it, just because I didn't want the weight of their kindness to expose what my family wouldn't. Give around noon, I checked my phone. No texts, no missed calls. Just an old automated email from a clothing store offering 15% off. The subject line: Happy You Day. I smiled a little at the irony. It wasn't sad exactly, just distant. Like I was reading someone else's horoscope. Last year, Mom forgot, but pretended she didn't. She claimed she had planned a dinner, but things got busy, and Raya had just shrugged, saying, "We'll do something next week, yeah?" That week never came. Neither did a card, or cake, or even a candle in a takeout cupcake. I had ordered myself ramen and watched reruns alone. I remember thinking maybe they just didn't know how to love me in a way I could recognize. That maybe I needed too much, or expected too little. I hadn't decided which. But this year I didn't feel that confusion anymore. I knew. They didn't forget me accidentally. They forgot me comfortably. After work, I walked home slowly. The sun had already begun to dim, its orange light stretching long shadows across the bookstore window below my apartment. I paused for a second, watching dust motes swirl like soft confetti, and then I climbed the narrow stairs, holding a brown paper bag with a slice of strawberry cake I'd picked out myself. When I opened the door, my apartment was quiet. Small, clean, faintly lavender from the candle I'd lit the night before. I placed the cake on my windowsill. No candles, no singing. Just me in soft socks, holding a plastic fork, and for the first time in years I whispered, "Happy birthday." It felt awkward at first, like trying to sing to a stranger. But as I took the first bite, something inside me loosened. A kind of internal nod. A kind of agreement that maybe I deserved this, even if it came only from me. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A single text. "Hey, we were just talking. Didn't realize it was your birthday. Happy late bidet. No name attached, no warmth. Just we, as if shared guilt could soften the sting. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because I was finally full. Spring came slowly. The bookstore downstairs opened its front windows again. People sat on the ledge with their coffees and worn paperbacks, their laughter trailing through the air like birdsong. I'd watch them from above, elbow perched on the windowsill, a chipped mug warming my palms. Not the moon phases one, that was long gone. This one was plain. Soft gray. A clearance find I chose myself. Something about that felt right. I hadn't heard from them in over a month. Not since the late bidet message. No follow-up. No apology. No surprise visit. Silence. The kind they always gave when they didn't. Want to say sorry, but didn't want to feel wrong either. I wondered, sometimes, if they noticed how clean the apartment stayed without me. If they missed the filled soap dispenser, the working Wi-Fi, the way towels reappeared without question. But I never reached out to ask. Because by then, I had learned. I wasn't the missing piece. I was the glue. And they had scraped me off. One quiet Sunday, I passed the old apartment building. I didn't plan to. I was taking the long way home after visiting a thrift shop across town. My arms were full of books and an old clock I wasn't sure worked, and I turned a corner, and there it was. The same brick building, same chipped steps, a different curtain. In my old window, I stopped. Just for a second. There was music playing faintly through the wall, not the kind I recognized. The blinds were pulled closed. Someone had left a pizza box on the steps. The light above the door flickered. It looked tired, lived in, but not cared for. And maybe that's what it always was. I just hadn't let myself see it. I walked on. Didn't stop. Didn't stare. By the time I reached my apartment, the sky had turned lilac blue. Clouds stretched thin like old thoughts. I climbed the stairs slowly, letting my muscles ache in a way that reminded me I still lived in this body, that I chose this life now. Inside, I set the books down. Made tea. Opened the window. The breeze smelled like new leaves and early dust. I sat in silence. A kind of silence that wasn't lonely, just quiet. The kind that didn't demand anything from me. The kind that had space. I never got the apology. They never called to say they were wrong. They never came to find me, and maybe they never will. But that's the thing no one tells you about being forgotten. Eventually, you remember yourself.